Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Let's just get straight into it. The numbers don't look good. This is Tesla's Q1 2025 production, deliveries, and deployments. And we're just going to look at the big picture numbers. I'm going to try to stick to the facts at the beginning of this and then be a little more speculative as we go on. So we'll compare this to the past a year ago quarter, so quarter one of 2024, because that's the best comparison. And then we need to look at Q4 of 2024 as well, specifically for the Cybertruck. So anyway, you can see the current value. So this is first quarter of 2025, so the one that just ended on March 31st. You can see production of 345,000 and change of the Model 3 and Y, with deliveries of almost 324,000. So a gap of 20 plus thousand between production and deliveries. That happens sometimes. This one is that's not great numbers. We'll take a look here. This one is even worse. You can see that there was production of 17,161 and deliveries of almost 13,000 of other. That is the Model S, the Model X, and the Cybertruck. So let us, for reference here, take a look at the first quarter of 2024. So you can see here that production was 412,000 with deliveries of almost 370,000 for the Model 3 and Y. The other models were about 21,000 production and 17,000 deliveries. So that was a year ago. The Cybertruck was just ramping at that point. So again, 345, let's just take a look at actual deliveries. So 324,000 versus 370,000 basically. So a major slip in deliveries, not just production, but also production has gone down quite a bit as well, because Tesla has clearly dialed back their production in order to, handle deliveries more appropriately. Now, yes, there is the ramp of the Model Y, getting rid of the old version of the Model Y. I looked around at inventory at the end of the quarter, and I'm going to get to this a little bit later, why I did that. But anyway, I looked at inventory. There were no old Model Ys available. So there is, you can blame a little bit of this on the Model Y being old and being phased out, and the new Model Y not really appearing until really just a couple of weeks ago. And we got a chance to test drive a Model Y at Chattanooga Charge, and it's very, very attractive. I will post a video about that very, very soon. But anyway, so regardless of that, that is part of what's going on. But I think in the other models, and this is very unfortunate that Tesla doesn't break these numbers out, but you can see in the first quarter of 2024, there were 17,000 deliveries. That was just when the Cybertruck was starting to ramp. And here, after it's had a year to ramp, plus we've got 13,000 deliveries. So very, very, very much fewer. So let's take a look at quarter four of 2024, mostly because I wanted to look at the number of the other category, because clearly you're going to see quarter four is always stronger than quarter one. So obviously we saw 436,000 production and 472,000 deliveries. That's actually great for the Model Y and Model 3. That means that they delivered a lot more than they produced, which is fantastic. Again, that can be lumpy. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But the other models is what I really want to look at for quarter four versus quarter one. You can see a production of almost 23,000 and about 23,500 deliveries. So there were 23,500 deliveries last quarter, and we're down to 13,000. So we've got a 10,000 reduction in deliveries from quarter four to quarter one. And if we again want to go year over year, when the Cybertruck was just ramping up, we'd go from 17,000 down to 13,000. So major, major reduction in the other category, which is primarily going to be the Cybertruck. I'll get into a little speculation in just a moment. And finally, let's take a look at the stock price. Interestingly enough, the stock price, you can pretty much tell exactly when the news came out, which was, an hour and a half ago at like 9:30. It just completely crashed after they announced this. And then weirdly enough, it has actually bounced back to almost what it was in off hours trading. So that's very interesting. It may indicate that some of this was already priced in. I have mentioned a lot to friends, and I have intimated on the channel. I don't think I've been that explicit about it, but I've been like, hey, the quarter one numbers are going to be the critical numbers. That is going to determine whether Tesla's stock is way over or undervalued, and how much the rumors of Tesla's troubles are true versus not true. And it appears that the rumors are much more true in terms of the production and deliveries this quarter. So again, just looking at this, we've got deliveries of about 324,000 versus last year at this time, just about 370,000. So that is a major, major fall off in deliveries. And Tesla, one of the things about their stock is it's a growth stock. Up until last year, it was growing gangbusters. It was getting bigger and bigger, and there was the rumors that they were going to produce 20 million cars by the end and deliver 20 million cars by the end of the decade, by 2030. We are way off of that number now, and actually their sales are collapsing. So anyway, so that's the facts of things. Now let me turn to more speculative stuff, and I will start with two anecdotal stories. In fact, three or four. I'll start with two that are related to each other, which is that I have two relatives who will remain unidentified. And just to be clear, I have a pretty even split between very conservative relatives and very liberal relatives. These two happen to be liberal relatives. They were purchasing specifically an electric vehicle, and this was within the last month. And I, did what I could to encourage them to test drive the Teslas, to test drive a Model Y, test drive Model 3, whatever, test drive the Cybertruck in one case. And what happened instead was that one of them went with a Ford Mustang Mach-E and the other one went with a Rivian truck. So Model Y to Ford Mustang Mach-E and a Cybertruck to Rivian truck. Both of those are very good choices, especially the Rivian is a very good choice, but that is only anecdotal. That's only my relatives. But you can see that even with me being very much a Tesla advocate and saying the Tesla vehicles are better, that was not enough to override their specific concerns. And that's exactly what they said. They were like, I am concerned about driving a Tesla now. I don't feel like it's appropriate. I don't want to worry about it. I don't want a political football to be driving around. That is the reason that they specifically did, even though both of them said that they thought that the Teslas were better vehicles, they were not going to purchase it. So anecdotal stuff. I also have had people very, very upset, like to the point of tears, talking about how they don't like driving their Teslas anymore. And we have grave concerns about driving our Teslas now. And then I just want to point out on the other side of things, like I said, I have some very, very conservative relatives. They are all about the current political situation and everything. Not a single one of those has any interest in purchasing an electric vehicle. So, and I'm not just talking about a Tesla, I'm talking about any electric vehicle whatsoever. So you're looking at a situation where the traditional customer base, and again, I've moved from the facts, which I did at the beginning very clearly, into speculation here, but you're looking at a customer base that was very liberal, that supported Tesla throughout the early years from the time they were created until very, very recently, until within the last year or so. You've got a customer base that was rabid about it. They were purchasing the vehicles, multiple vehicles per family, and really supporting Tesla. And that group of people is drying up. They're very concerned about purchasing a Tesla. Even if they don't particularly care about the political situation, they don't want to be driving something that is a political lightning rod. And we're going to get to the Cybertruck in just a sec. And then on the other end of things, the people, again, anecdotally that I know, and I think it's borne out by the statistics right here. If we look at this number, 323,800 deliveries, and then 12,881. So we're talking about very, very large collapse in numbers in these things, percentage-wise terms. We're looking at a group of people that now does support Musk and Tesla more than they did before, but at least in my experience and looking at the statistics here at the number of production and deliveries, they're not purchasing the electric vehicles. So they're not making up the gap. You're losing people, you're not gaining another. You're losing one group of people, you're not gaining another group back. Now, yes, again, the Model Y was being depleted. They were getting rid of it at the end of at the first quarter of 2025 and replacing it with the new Model Y. That is in the United States. That was happening earlier in other countries. You got to remember that China could care less about the politics of the United States. They're purchasing the cars they want. That has something to do with this too. Clearly, they're not purchasing as many as they were before. Europe has a major reduction because there is a lot of animosity in Europe towards Elon Musk and now Tesla. So you're seeing the fallout of all of this stuff. Nowhere is this more clear than the Cybertruck, which is where we get to our other deliveries and the collapse from quarter four at 23,640 down to just under 13,000 in deliveries. The Cybertruck is the lightning rod. It is something that my wife, quite frankly, won't drive our Cybertruck alone anymore because she's so scared about being, abusively attacked or anything. I don't think particularly physically, but she just doesn't want the conflict. And quite honestly, when I drive in it, it concerns me as well. And I've had people flip me off. I've also had people, give me a giant thumbs up. That is very uncomfortable as well. I don't want to make a political statement driving a car. So you can see that there are issues, and those issues are coming out in the numbers right here. This 12,881 is extremely concerning. We purchased a very expensive vehicle. We expected Tesla to continue to, to roll out more on the Cybertruck to make it not some sort of a boondoggle that we would feel embarrassed to own. And yet very, very rapidly after we purchased the vehicle, we have found ourselves in that situation where this might be like the Pontiac Aztec of the 2020s. And that is a deep concern for us as owners of the vehicle, as owners of Tesla, and as owners of Tesla stock. Now, it is interesting to see that, apparently, according to this, we've got a bounce back and things are approximately where they were before. But of course, the stock has come down drastically since the highs in early December, and things have gone very, very south for that. I think also this is going back to facts. I can't remember the exact numbers, so I won't quote them, but in the tens of millions of dollars, Kimball Musk and also Robin Denholm, who is the chair of the board of Tesla, have sold tens of millions of dollars of stock each within the last couple of weeks. And, you can see that perhaps they had information about what was going to be coming and decided to, take a little cash in the meantime, which is, they're right, obviously, but it is a deep concern that there is a lack of confidence on the board of directors that Tesla is doing well enough that they would want to hold their stock. And Elon, of course, did a all hands on deck meeting with Tesla recently where he said, hold on to your stock. Things are going to get better. Interesting little caveats going on with that as well. Well, where does this leave us? Well, the first thing we'll have to do is be a little bit more patient for another 3 months. So we'll have to wait for April, May, June. You'll have to wait for the beginning of July to see Q2 numbers, because then we will have had a complete changeover to the new refreshed Model Y. If things don't pick up drastically in Q2, that is going to be a very bad sign. Also, of course, I really want to look at the other models for Q2 and see if the Cybertruck is going to sell any units at all, right? Are they just selling a handful of thousands of units a quarter? If that's the case, that is really a boondoggle for the company, and they may have to cut production of the vehicle entirely and just call it a loss, right? They may just be like, oh, well, we can't do this. And in which case, what happens to those of us who own the vehicles? That's not a great thing either. We don't want to own a vehicle that has been cut off and is no longer basically being supported or promoted by the company. So a big concern from me personally, big concern as a stockholder, that we saw a huge collapse in the stock price. And then, of course, as a proponent of making the climate better, of making the world better, of driving electric vehicles, not polluting your roads so much, seeing these deliveries go down so much is a huge concern. That's against Tesla's mission. It's not accelerating the world's transition to renewable energy at this point, because clearly they're not able to sell as many vehicles as they were just a year ago. So all of this stuff is very, very concerning. We'll need to wait another 3 months to see what happens. But I, for one, I kind of called this, at least privately. I tried to intimate this on my channel a couple of times and say, like, well, look at the numbers. Things are probably not going to go well. But anyway, I called this privately and said things are not going to look good after these numbers are published. I'm hoping that maybe they will look better in the second quarter numbers, but I'm not convinced that they will be. So we'll have to reconvene here in about 3 months exactly and look at it again. But in the meantime, this is a very, very big concern. All right, folks. So definitely let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. Try to remain constructive and polite. I know there's going to be a lot of polarity in terms of responses of this. Some people going like Tesla can do no wrong, and others will be like Tesla can do no right. There will probably be a lot of that, but just remain constructive in your criticism. That's totally fine. Let me know what you think about all of this. If you think there's other caveats that could explain some of these numbers being disrupted, or if you think that I'm on the right track here. Anyway, I would love to know your thoughts. And while you're down there, if you don't mind liking the video so other people can find it, and of course, consider subscribing if you want more of this kind of content and content about AI and technology in general. Definitely give it a subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.